If you guys have been watching my Anime World Tower Defense videos recently, then you know that I've been trying to become one of the best players in Anime World Tower Defense. And in my last video, I managed to get the last few characters that I was missing to be one of the best players in the game. And a bunch of you guys asked me to make a tier list of what I think the best characters are now. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. And what I've done is I've made a list of the 10 best characters. And as we go through this list, I'll be telling you guys why I think each character is as good as I think they are. But just very quickly before we start this video, I told you guys I would make a Discord server for this channel once we hit 1,000 subs. And somehow we're already at 1,200. You guys have been going crazy, so thank you guys so much for that. But I finally made the Discord server. The link's going to be in the description and in the comments. And if you guys want to join, I'll be doing tournaments with you guys. I'll be playing with you guys. You might end up in some videos and stuff like that. It should be fun. So if you guys want to join, I'm going to have the link in the comments, and I'm also going to have the link in the description of all my videos from now on. So definitely join if you want to be in my videos in the future. Okay, so let's start with the video now. And before we actually start with the top 10, there are some must-have characters in the game in my opinion right now. So I made a list of those as well. There's 4 characters in this list, and I think all of these characters you need to have. And we're going to be going through those first because most of them are like support. I wasn't sure where to put them, and I thought it was more fair to put them as must-have characters instead of actually having them in my top 10. The first character that I have in my must-have characters is going to be Stone Doctor. Stone Doctor is one of the best characters in the entire game if you want to farm damage, because he's a character that makes a lot of money. He also provides a lot of buffs, and for one slot on your team, he's a character that actually provides so much. It's kind of crazy. So if you guys don't have him, definitely get him. And if you don't know how to get him, what you want to do is come here to shop, and you want to go to the token exchange right here, and Stone Doctor is now available using 1 Abyss token. Anyways, the next character that I think is a must-have has actually been in this tier for the longest time, and that's going to be Leader. Leader is also a support, and you want to make sure that you evolve him to get his full support. What Leader does once he's evolved is he gives a huge buff to every single character on your team. For these 4 teams right here, you can see the passive, and he also increases how much money your money units make. So he's just an amazing character. And because he also leads the youth team, which if you guys don't know is probably one of the best teams in the game right now, then that just makes him a must-have character in my opinion. Then the next character that I think everyone should have on their account is actually going to be Griffith. And the reason why I put Griffith here is because Griffith kind of works like Leader. The way he works is he also buffs certain teams, but compared to Leader, which only buffed I think 4 teams, this guy basically buffs every single person in the game. So if you guys can see the passive right here, it says that you can turn him into either Darkness Knight, which buffs villain units, or Holy Knight, which buffs hero units. And if you guys don't know who the villain units and hero units are in this game, it's basically every single character in the game. So if there's any team where you can't run Leader because Leader doesn't buff the specific character you're working on, then Griffith is going to be your next option, and that's why he's a must-have character in the game. And finally, the last must-have character in the game, I don't actually have her yet, and that's going to be Gamble Queen. The way Gamble Queen works is she's also a money unit, kind of like Stone Doctor, but the way she works is completely different. She's one of the best money units in the game as well, because you basically gamble all your money and you have a chance of doubling it like every 30 seconds. But if it was just that, she wouldn't be on my must-have characters. So obviously she must have something else to be on a must-have character list, and she does, because she has a passive which allows her to do a 50-50, and if you actually win it, then all of your characters' attack is buffed by 4 times, which is broken. If you guys ever run an infinite stage or you're trying to farm damage, Gamble Queen is going to be a character that someone needs to bring. So that's why she's a must-have character as well. But anyways, that's it for the must-have characters in the game. And I was going to put Griffith in the top 10, but I think because he provides so much support on top of being a really good damage character, it was more fair to put him in must-have. So anyways, let's start with the top 10 now. And we're going to start straight away at number 1. I don't want to make you guys watch through the entire video just so you know who the best character is in the game in my opinion. So make sure you like and subscribe for that. But anyways, my favorite character in the game right now, and he is also the best character in the game in my opinion, I am not biased when I say this, it's Gappy. Gappy is the best character in the game right now. And the reason for that is because Gappy just has so much to his kit. If you guys want to see an even more in-detail video about him, I've made an entire video on getting him. So if you guys want to watch this, it should be like on the top right above me. But for now, I'm just going to go through it really quickly. Basically, the way he works is he has that thing Bubble ability, which provides him with 3 abilities. And that's kind of what makes him really good. The first thing is his heal bubble. He heals the base, which just makes him really good for kind of all the content in the game. On top of that, he has friction plundering, which is kind of like a time stop stun that also does a lot of damage. And then he has go beyond, which is basically guaranteed to delete every single character in the game. But Go Beyond you can only use in infinites, so that's also something really important to keep in mind. But that does make him good for basically every single stage in the game. And if that wasn't enough, he also has Explosion, which is one of the best damage over time passives in the entire game. His attack stat is amazing. He can go up to like 20 million attack every 10 seconds, which is 2 million DPS, not even including the Explosion passive. And if that wasn't enough, he's on Youth, which I told you guys about Leader. Youth is one of the best teams in the entire game. But yeah, that's Gappy, and that's why I think that he's number 1 in the game. Anyways, it's time that we look at the second best character in the game now, and we were talking about the Youth team, and this guy is also on the Youth team. That character is going to be Death the Kid, and I think this one might be really controversial. I don't think any of you guys expected him to be this high up, but I have my reasons for it, and this guy is broken. So the first thing that I want you guys to look at is this guy is on the Youth team. So we're going to be talking a lot about the Youth team. I know a lot of you guys also asked me what are the best teams in the game. The Youth team, I'm telling you guys right now, is one of the best teams in the entire game. So anyways, he's on Youth. That's one really good thing. Second thing, he's a critical character, which means that he doesn't consider elements. Elements don't matter to him. He's going to be doing 2.5 times damage every single time. And if you guys are scared that because he's a critical character, he doesn't really have consistent damage, don't worry, because his speed is 0.25. And that's why he's number 2 on this list. The fact that his speed is this low does a few things for him. First of all, he has a DPS of 8,800 on placement. He only costs 1,000 as well, which just makes him the best character to place early on. So he's going to be your best progressive character in the entire game. He has a speed of 0.25, which makes him one of the best characters on placement because he's going to be critting every single time. And if that wasn't enough, because he has a speed of 0.25, that does mean that he doesn't actually lose stamina. So if you're ever in the stage where you're doing insane, you're doing nightmare, and you're short on money and you can't actually buy food, don't worry, because his speed is so fast that he actually doesn't lose stamina at all. And that's why, in my opinion, he's the second best character in the game, because he's just the best progressive character in the game by far. Anyways, let's keep going. And the third best character in the game, in my opinion, is actually going to be the first character that's not on Youth, and that character is going to be Kenpachi. And the reason why Kenpachi is number 3 and not number 1, because I'm going to be honest with you guys, Kenpachi is one of the best characters in the game. The only thing that's preventing him from being number 1 is because he's a ground character. The only issue and the only complaint that I have about him is that he actually can't hit air characters, and that actually limits how much you can use him in the game. For example, there's been a few times where I've been wanting to use him in tournaments, and because he can't actually hit air characters, that actually makes him a lot worse for tournaments than he's supposed to be. And to put it into perspective, if this guy could hit air, he would 100% be the number 1 unit in this tier list right now. But anyways, let's go through what he does. First of all, he's one of the best progressive characters because he's so cheap to max out. He costs 1,700 to place if you don't include the honored one, and his passive just really carries him, if I'm being honest. He has Unbreakable. What it does is it provides resist, which means that he's immune to stun, which can be really useful in progressive. And on top of that, he has a 50% chance of dealing 3 times damage. But if that was everything he had, he wouldn't be that good. The other thing that makes him really good is he has a built-in raise attack every single wave, and there's no limit to it. So he's going to be the highest damage character in the entire game, hands down. As soon as you're doing infinites, this guy just goes insane. And on top of that, as soon as you hit past wave 50, his superpower, which is part of the Unbreakable passive and has a 50% chance of happening, actually becomes guaranteed. So he ends up getting one of the highest damage stat in the game. And because he has superpower and not crit, that actually means that elements still apply to him. So because he's fire, as soon as he's going to be hitting a green enemy, he's actually going to be doing about 6 times damage. So being the best character in infinites, having the highest damage stat in infinites, and also doing guaranteed 6 times damage, just means that in very situational cases, he's going to be the best character in the game by far. So yeah, the fact that Kenpachi can be this good in infinites, can be by far the best character in infinites if you use him right, and on top of that, he still remains one of the best progressive characters in the entire game, just means I have to give him 3rd place in the tier list. Next, for the 4th best character in the game, and I think this is where we start to have some flaws in the characters, is going to be Guts. And the thing with Guts is that if you just look at numbers, he's the best character in the game by far, but he starts having a lot of flaws when you actually start using him in different types of content. So we're going to be going through those, and the first thing that you can probably tell is his cost. He costs 10,000. With the Fallen one, he gets an extra 50% cost, so he ends up costing a lot, which means that he's only going to be viable in infinites. And the reason that he's 4th, even though he costs so much, is that if we're going to be using him in infinites, with Gamble Queen, with Stone Doctor, we actually end up having basically infinite money. So that fact that he costs so much isn't really a problem anymore. And that's why Guts is number 4, because in my opinion, with Kenpachi, Guts is the best infinite character in the entire game. On top of that, he has the best lead in the entire game for Frantic Warrior, which is actually a pretty decent team, and he's also in the Devil Power team, which is a team I haven't actually talked about yet, and is one of the best teams in the entire game as well. So that's why he's this high up. And if you guys are wondering why he does so much damage, first of all, just look at his numbers. When you place him, he has 60k damage every 6 seconds, which is crazy. On top of that, he has Hemorrhage, which is a new bleed passive. It's basically just bleed, which you can see the passive bleed is right here. And on top of that, there's another passive which does even more damage, so it's really good. And he was the first character in the game that came out with a second passive, which is really broken, that allows him to not get stunned. And just like I was saying with Kenpachi, not being stunned is really useful in some stages. But not only is he immune to stun, every single time he gets stunned, he actually ends up doing even more damage. And in infinite stages and tournament runs, where they usually like to add stun to make the run way harder for you, bringing Guts actually allows to completely change those tricky tournaments into really easy stages and easy leaderboard runs. And even though I did put Kenpachi above Guts, Guts can actually hit air characters as well, which just makes him even better in infinite runs, because Guts basically just covers all of the flaws that Kenpachi has, which is just amazing because you can usually run both of them on the same team as well. They're both on Devil Power, they're both on Unbreakable Fighter, and if you're crazy, you can try running him in progressive. It's something that I definitely won't be recommending, but it does work sometimes. But in my opinion, he's not a good progressive character, so that's why I'm going to be putting him in 4th place on my tier list. Alright, we're almost halfway there, so let's look at number 5 on the tier list, and that's going to be Alucard. And Alucard is going to be like a bit of a weird one because he himself is not crazy, if that makes sense. You guys will understand in a bit. So the way he works is his passive is Bloodthirsty 2, which allows him to do 250% extra damage on enemies that are affected by bleeding. So obviously he's not going to be good by himself. He needs characters that do bleeding, right? But he is the best leader for the Devil Power team. And just like the youth team that I was telling you guys about earlier, the Devil Power team is probably one of the best teams in the game, specifically for Infinites, but still one of the best teams in the game. So if we look at the team right now that Alucard leads, we get Denji. Denji applies Hemorrhage, which is a form of bleed. Griffith, I'm pretty sure, either applies some form of bleed with Madness, or Madness allows him to do like extra damage to enemies affected by bleeding, something like that, but it buffs Alucard's damage as well. Then we also have Blood Queen, which I don't know how good she is on the Devil Power team, but she also applies bleed. And then finally we get Guts, which we literally just talked about. He's one of the best characters in the game, and he also applies bleed. And you guys are going to see in this tier list, most of the characters that I just mentioned are going to be on this top 10. That's just how good the Devil Power team is, and that's why Alucard is so good. Alucard is meta right now because the team that's built around him is meta right now, and he just complements it so well. He does so much damage. With Bloodthirsty 2, he does even more damage because of the team that he's on. And if that's not enough, he also has one of the best abilities in the entire game, which is a nuke that spawns summons and also transforms him. And if you guys are wondering why this nuke is so good, it's not just because of how much damage he does with it, it's also just because of how many times you can use it. Unlike other nukes like Gilgamesh that just delete everyone once and then you can't use it anymore for the entire game, this one you can actually use every 500 seconds, which is about 10 minutes. But if you're bringing him into an infinite run, which is what the Devil Power team is really good for, then you're most likely going to be able to pop it multiple times. So that's why I have Alucard at number 5. And for number 6, we're going to be staying with the Devil Power team, and we're going to be looking at Denji. In my opinion, the new Miracle Rare Denji is really good. He got a brand new passive which is called Erased, and the way that it works is as soon as he kills one enemy, he applies a debuff to every single enemy on the entire map permanently. The debuff does not go away, and what that debuff does is it decreases enemy speed by 10% and max HP by 10%. And I know it might not sound like much, but because Denji is actually a pretty cheap character, you can easily bring him into any progressive activity, and as soon as he kills one enemy, he just makes the activity 10% easier. Just like that. He's also just a really good character overall. He has a huge full AoE, he has Hemorrhage, which is the same passive as Guts, and that's why people have been calling him the progressive Guts, because he just replaces Guts perfectly on the Devil Power team, and he's just insanely strong in progressive. And I know that Stain also came out recently, and a lot of people have been calling Stain the cheaper Guts. And even though Stain is also really good, I just think that Denji is a lot better than Stain. And the good thing is that you can actually run Stain and Denji together, because Denji has a full AoE, which actually makes him work perfectly with Stain. So yeah, that's Denji, and he's gonna be number 6 on the tier list. Alright, number 7 now, and we're actually gonna be staying with the Devil Power team, and we're gonna be looking at Kokushibo. And Kokushibo is one of these characters, just like Alucard, that completely relies on one team being good. But this guy on the Devil Power team specifically is insane. So I'm gonna tell you guys exactly what he does. He has the Demon Flame passive, which is really good. It's basically just a guaranteed burn that works insanely well in Devil Power teams. But the thing that makes him really good, and especially good on the Devil Power team, which I've been telling you guys about this entire time, it's this passive, the Upper Moon 1 passive. What it does is that per unit with a Devil Power category on your team, he gets an extra 40% attack. But then there's a downside to it, because if you use a unit that doesn't have the Devil Power team, he gains a 30% SPA, so he attacks slower. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're running a full Devil Power team when you're using this guy, so you can get as much attack as possible and your stamina can stay as low as possible. So if we look at the Devil Power team right here, which is what I have right now, we get Kokushibo. Kokushibo doesn't actually count towards his passive, but he is Devil Power. Then we get Alucard, which is Devil Power, Kenpachi, Guts, and Griffith, which are all Devil Power, which means that you have 4 Devil Power characters on your team, which gives a huge 160% attack to your Kokushibo. And he starts doing a lot of damage. Sadly, I do have Idol. I don't know if there's anyone I could replace it with. If you're a Psycho and you're going into an Infinite, you can just run it with no money unit and your friend's gonna upgrade your units instead. And you can probably get 200% attack. I've never tried it, but with all of the new money units, it definitely works. And yeah, that's the Devil Power team. And because of the state of the Devil Power team right now, just like Alucard, that makes Kokushibo insanely good. And yeah, there's not much more to say about him. The only thing that I will say is his range is really low. So whenever you're going to be using him, range is the only thing that you're going to really struggle with. But except that, he's an amazing character. And he's also really cheap, so you can use him in progressive infinites. He's going to work everywhere. Alright, for the 8th best character, we're taking a break from Devil Power. And we're actually going straight back to youth. We're going to be looking at Maki now. Maki, in my opinion, is the 8th best character in the game right now. And if you don't have her, she was on the last battle pass, so she's currently unavailable. And if you want to get her, you're going to have to wait for her to be on a token exchange. But she's going to cost 1 battle pass token, which is really cheap for how good she is. And the reason she's so good is actually because of a few different things. First of all, she has Unbreakable, just like Kenpachi, which, as I told you guys earlier, is one of the best passives, especially for progressive. So because to me, the youth team is the best progressive team in the entire game, Maki just fits the youth team perfectly. And the reason why she's so good for progressive isn't just because of Unbreakable. She's actually a really cheap character. Her cost is so low that you can put Honored 1 and still be able to place her on wave 1. And her upgrades are also really cheap, so you can easily max her out in any progressive activity. And once she's maxed out, she does a lot of damage, but there are a few problems to her. And that problem is kind of weird because it's also one of the things that make her really good, and it's that she's a chase character. And if you guys don't know what chase characters are in Anime World Tower Defense, basically they just chase the enemies around the map, so they kind of have infinite range, which obviously infinite range is going to be really good for a character that can't be stunned and that does so much damage. But what the infinite range also means is that she often runs out of the buff area. So when you're setting up in a progressive and stuff like that, because she can go so far, sometimes she just walk out of the buffs and she'll end up doing a lot less damage than she's supposed to do. And I don't know if that's a glitch or if it's on purpose, because even if you place her right next to your buffs, the way that the buffs work in this game is that it doesn't buff your character based on where you place them, it's based on where they actually are at the time that the buff is being activated. So a lot of times she's going to be out of the range of the buff, and that is kind of annoying, but she's still insanely good, so that's why she gets number 8. Anyways, we're almost done. Let's look at number 9 now, and it's actually kind of difficult just remembering every single character one by one, but number 9 is going to be Killua. Killua is also on the youth team, and the reason I have him this low is actually because Gappy just replaces him. Gappy is also on the youth team. Gappy also does element damage, and Gappy just does everything better, to be fair. But Killua is still an amazing character. He's really broken, and the reason why I have him here is because sometimes you're still going to want to use Killua over Gappy. And the reason why is the same reason why I have Death the Kid at number 2, and is because Killua attacks at 0.5 speed. And when you have 0.5 speed, you don't need any food, so that makes you one of the best characters to place early on in the game. But now that we have Death the Kid and that we have Gappy, Killua is a bit less useful. And Killua is also a lot less consistent than Death the Kid because he only has 1 placement, whereas Death the Kid had 3. But yeah, Killua is still really good. He has Paralysis too, which is also a pretty decent passive. He does have his own abilities, which allows him to make a wish every 100 seconds. The first wish is a wish for money, which means he can just make 500k just like that. So it can be really useful if you're struggling for money in any game mode. Then he also has the protection wish, which means that he protects the base for, I think, 50 seconds. I can't remember exactly. It's pretty good when you're doing damage farming, especially because even though he protects the base, he's still attacking, which just provides a lot. And then the final one, which is in my opinion the best one, is the Power Wish. He provides a 20% damage buff to every single person in his range, and he also provides a 120% buff to himself. So in infinite runs, once again, once you're damage farming, he just buffs every single person on the team, which is really good. But he's only going to be number 9 on my tier list because there's just so many more better characters than him now. And finally, for the 10th best character in the game, I actually have Blood Queen. So, Blood Queen is right here. I haven't actually evolved her yet, so I don't know how good she really is. But from what I've heard, she's the best character in progressive, and she's also a necessary character if you're ever trying to make a Bloody Hunt team. And if we look at the Bloody Hunt team right here, it's basically the exact same team as the Devil Power team that I was telling you guys about earlier. It just has a few extra characters that are really good on it. And the reason I have her at number 10 is because even though she's a really good character, she's the best progressive red character in the entire game. It's because she only works on Bloody Hunt. And the Bloody Hunt team is more of an infinite based team as of right now. It's not really a team made for progressive. So even though she's the best red progressive character in the entire game, I can't really give her more than number 10 in my opinion. And also I haven't evolved her yet, so I'm literally just basing this off of what other people have told me. So if I'm wrong about Blood Queen, that's why. I will be making a video on her later, but for now she's going to be number 10 on my tier list. But anyways, that's my top 10, and I do have a few honorable mentions that I'm going to be going through very quickly. But I don't want to spend too much time on them because they didn't make it to the top 10. They're still really good characters though. And the first honorable mention that I have is actually Wukong, because Wukong used to be the best blue progressive character, but then Gappy came out, so Gappy is just straight up better than him. And Wukong also barely has any teams, so that's why he's only an honorable mention, even though he's still really strong. Then Stain, I know I mentioned him a few times in the video, but in my opinion, he's not exactly good enough to be in the top 10. I was going to replace Blood Queen with him, but Blood Queen literally enables him to be as good as he is, so I can't really put Stain above than the character that makes him good. So that's why he's not on the tier list, but he is still a really good character. Then I also had Makima. Makima, I'm pretty sure, is really good as well. She's one of the best progressive reds in the entire game, I'm pretty sure. And she also has an amazing nuke. But the only reasoning I have for her not being in the top 10 is she's just not as good as the 10 characters that I have on the list. Then Escanor. Escanor is so broken in infinites. He's really good, but I don't have him on my top 10 because you can literally only use him in infinites. He's not good anywhere else. Don't even attempt to use him in progressive. I know I said the same thing about Guts, but Guts is good enough to the point where even if you don't max him out, he's still decent in progressive. This guy, do not waste your time trying to use him in progressive. He's only broken in infinites. And then the last two characters that I had in honorable mentions, I don't actually have them, so let me just pop an image of them on the screen, and it's going to be Cursed Katana and the War Devil. Those two are from the Battle Pass. War Devil just came out, so I'm not sure how good she is. And Cursed Katana actually is really good. She came out in the last Battle Pass, so she's currently unobtainable. But the reason why she's not in the top 10 is because Alucard literally completely replaced her. So yeah, I don't even want to get her anymore because I just know that Alucard is better than her. But anyways, that's going to be it for my top 10 best characters, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys don't agree with anything or you would move some characters, just let me know in the comments, especially about Blood Queen, because I don't actually know how good she is. And if you guys want a video of the 5 best teams in the game, I'm down to do that as well. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, if you enjoyed it, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.